Hey guys, welcome back to the third episode. So this one's going to be a little bit more of a continuation of the previous one. So the previous episode was just getting started, literally the very basics of what you should do, which is just doing more than you currently are now. And then this one, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on that topic. So specifically, how do you work out your calories? So you've decided, yes, I want to do this. I'm in a position that I really want to get serious about losing weight. What should I do moving forward? So lots and lots of different things that we'll cover off in this episode. We're going to be covering off things like how large should your deficit be, not in too much detail, but to give you a very good starting point. How to figure out your calories, what your BMR and your total daily energy expenditure means, things like how to track your calories and make sure it's accurate, how to track your weight correctly. I won't go into too much detail in terms of things like measurements and weigh-ins, but I'll give you a very good base understanding, and obviously I will do future episodes in terms of how to track it much more accurately in the future and my methods and how I do it with my clients. Just little tips, tricks and things that I've learnt through the last 12 years, and hopefully I can get you started on your weight loss journey and start getting lean. So if you're new here, as always, make sure you subscribe. If you do hear any noises in the background, and maybe the fish tank or maybe the dog barking because I'm doing this from home, but I will try and trim those out if that does happen. But let's get into the good stuff. So you decided you want to lose weight. Congratulations. You are taking responsibility for your future self. Now, how do we know how low in calories we need to go? How do we know what our calories should be? Now, first and foremost, if you do go to my content, so Shannon Billows Fitness, if you search Instagram, TikTok, I don't know if it's on my website, but if you go onto those, there'll be a link section in the bio. I have a free calorie calculator. Now, this free calorie calculator I use for myself and all of my paying clients. Now, I do have a much more advanced version for myself, but everything I'm going to talk about to you today will be in that calculator. Now, I am biased to my calculator because it's the one that I always use. But to work out your calories, you can literally just go online, and there is a website that you can use, which is Total Daily Energy Expenditure Calculator. So if you just type in TDEE calculator, that will come up. Now, what you're going to need to do is put in your age, your gender, your height. In my calculator, it will be in centimeters and kilograms because I'm from Australia. And then you can put in things like your activity level. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to generate an estimation for your calories. Now, let me just sort of preface and say this early. Sometimes when you're working out your calories, people overestimate how much activity that they do. Now, here comes the bad news. Weight training, exercise, cardio, running and walking really doesn't burn that many calories. Unless you're a very, very large person, it just doesn't burn that many calories. So we're going to pretty much ignore that for the most part. We will add in a little bit, but we're going to ignore it for the most part. Now, if you are doing a weight training session, to give you some context, for a small female, roughly in the ranges of say 50 to 70-ish kilos, maybe 80 kilos, you would be lucky to burn around 200-ish, maybe 250 calories per weight training session. If you're a male and you're in sort of roughly the 70, 80, 90 kilo range, you're probably looking at maybe burning in the 300 to maybe 400 calories per weight training session. And again, these are still on the high side. Now, if you're counting your steps, and that's another whole podcast in itself, but most step calculators can be off, or calorie calculators that are built into your step tracking can be off by as much as 50%. So if your calorie counting tracker, step tracker, whatever you're using, Fitbit, iPhone, MyFitnessPal, whatever it is, tells you that you burn 500 calories in the 10,000 steps that you did today, that could be as low as 200 to 250 calories. So we don't rely on our exercise burnt. We pretty much ignore that for the most part. But I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Now, if you get basically 12,000 steps or less per day, you are classified as sedentary. All right, so 12,000 or less steps per day, it's basically sedentary. You more or less just sitting at a desk most of the day. Anything above the 12,000 steps, you'd probably be classified as a little bit more active. Now, it's not good or bad. It just is factual. It just is what it is, okay? Now, I'm classified as sedentary. I'm a personal trainer. I work on the gym floor for a living, and I get maybe 6,000 to 7,000 steps a day. If you're a flat out desk worker and you literally commute to work sitting on a train, and you get to work and you sit down for 6, 7, 8 hours, and then you sit on the train on the way home, and then you sit and watch Netflix all night, your steps would probably be close to like maybe 2,000 to 4,000 steps a day. And that's very sedentary. So with the calculators, you would enter all your details, so things like age, sex, height, weight, and your activity goal. For majority of people, you're probably going to want to set this between either sedentary or very minimal activity, unless you're getting 12,000 steps or higher. Now, in the calculator, there's going to be some areas that will pop up. So some terms that you'll probably see will be things like your BMR and your total daily energy expenditure. So what do these mean? So your BMR calories is your basal metabolic rate. Now, the way I like to explain this to clients is, if you were to lay in bed in a coma for 24 hours in a day, your BMR, or you can use the other people tend to use RMR, which is your resting metabolic rate, but your basal metabolic rate is the amount of calories it costs just to keep you alive, breathing and functioning, laying in bed in a coma, doing zero, absolutely nothing. Now, you'll find that 70% of the calories you burn in a day is just your BMR calories. Literally just the calories for you to lay in bed and do absolutely nothing. Now, this is because the most metabolically active tissue, the things that burn the most amount of calories in your body, are your organs. So things like your brain, your liver, your kidneys. These are the things that make up most of the calories that you burn in a day, because this tissue is so active, it burns a lot of calories. Now, you can't really change your BMR. It can't really decrease and it can't really increase all that much. The reason being is because it's tied into your organs. Your organ size is tied into how tall you are. The larger of a person you are, say for example, someone who is 6'3" versus someone who's 5'5", you need larger organs to accommodate for a larger body. Therefore, at a basal metabolic rate level, the larger person will just burn more calories at rest. This is generally why most men will lose weight faster than women, eating relatively the same calories. It's very easy for me. If I burn about 22, 23, 2400 calories a day, I can go down to 1,000 calories a day easy. I can just eat mostly protein and veggies and I can lose up to 1 kilo per week. Whereas someone who's, say, my wife, and she's 5'5", her total daily energy expenditure might be 1,800 calories a day. And then the majority of that would be about maybe 1,200 to 1,300, which is just her BMR calories. So my BMR calories is probably 1,800, whereas hers is 1,200. So even if she's doing the bare minimum exercise, she might be lucky to burn a couple of hundred calories on top of her BMR per day. And I'm going to give you some concrete examples in a moment. So your BMR is literally just to lay in bed and do nothing. All right, doesn't really change. You can't change your organ size. You can gain a little bit of muscle, but it really doesn't burn that many calories. Apart from that, if you're doing some extra activities, so things like weight training, Zumba classes, picking up the kids, doing the groceries, putting the washing away, just your normal daily activity in your steps, that would be included on top of your BMR. Now, there are activity multipliers, but in my calculator, my activity just says lightly. So if you're exercising 1 to 3 times per week, that would include your daily steps as well. So if I have someone who is 35, they're female, they're 160 centimeters tall, they currently weigh 70 kilograms, light activity is about 1 to 3 days a week, their BMR calories just to lay in bed is 1,364. So just to function, they need 1,364 calories. Now, to maintain their weight as they currently are at 70 kilograms, just doing their normal daily life and not gain, not lose any weight, they would need to be burning, they would be burning about 1,870 calories per day. Now, this is not 100% accurate, but it's a very, very good close starting point. It might be 100 or 200 calories higher. It could be 100 or 200 calories lower. It might be right on the money. It just depends on the person. Some people are just biologically slightly higher in their BMR and activity. Some people are on the slightly lower side. Now we know how many calories this person burns. So what do we do from here? How do we know how many calories we should be reducing from that? Now, you may hear things like, don't eat below your BMR calories, it's unhealthy, it's dangerous, and blah, blah, blah. Do not listen to those people, okay? Even if you eat 0 calories, your body still has to function. You still have to burn 1,300 calories to live. Your liver and your brain needs fuel. It needs energy. Now, if you do eat 0 calories, which I'm not recommending, or you're not getting enough carbohydrates, your body will convert to ketosis, which is why the keto diet is possible. Basically, if you don't get enough food or energy or carbohydrates, your body can use more fat as fuel. So it can turn literally the body fat that you have into sugars, which is what your brain basically needs to function. And that's a process which is a ketogenic diet. That's essentially what it is. But you don't need to be keto to lose weight. I'm just giving you a quick example. So if the more overweight you are, the lower in calories you can go safely without any adverse health effects. And I mean adverse health effects as in losing lean mass. So the more overweight you are, the more unhealthy it is for you. Now, how do you know if you're overweight? The method that I like to use, so yes, you can look at the scale and you can probably estimate, using BMI and general indicators, I'm probably in the overweight category. Now, what I like to use is a waist circumference. So for men, if your waist circumference, and this is at the widest point at your belly button, if your waist is larger than 50% of your height, you are basically in the obese-ish category. So you're heading into that really unhealthy territory. For women, it works out to be 46% of your height. Okay, and this is at your small waist, so not your belly button, but the space in between your ribs and your hips, so the smallest part of your waist. Now, when you do measure yourself, I would recommend doing it at the same day, same time each week. So if you're going to just measure your waist measurement, and this is just a very quick overview, usually you would want to exhale all of the breath that you have in you, and then tense your abs as hard as you can. This would give you the most accurate representation of exactly how much fat you have around the waist. So posture can affect your measurements, how much you breathed in the time that you did your measurements, but over the course of weeks and or months, it does average out. So don't worry about it too much, but just try and get it as consistent as you can on a week-to-week basis. But in short, if your waist is above 50% of your height, if you're 200 centimeters tall and your waist circumference is larger than 100, you are overweight. You need to lose weight, plain and simple. All right. For women, it works out to be 47% of your height. And I do have the example here. So for this person who's 160 centimeters tall, and if we have a look at their upper limit healthy waist, they would be 73.6 centimeters. If they're above this, time to get the calorie deficit on plan, get it on point, and start losing body fat. Now, we do have healthy lower limits as well, but I'm not going to go into that today. But there is a lower limit that you don't want to really go below, because you can also get too lean, which is also too unhealthy. It's not good to be over, it's not good to be under. There's a healthy spectrum that we want to be in. So we've covered off your BMR, your total daily energy expenditure. How do you know if you even need to lose body fat? Basically, if you're above that waist target for men and women, you basically need to start dieting down a little bit. Once you get down to that number or even slightly below, you're pretty much classified as a lean person. Now, yes, if you want to lean down further than that, if you want, lean six-pack abs on the beach, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. Vanity numbers, they're in there as well in the calculator, but the most important thing is health, and then we train for vanity second. Now, how much of a deficit should you reduce your calories by? Given the guidelines, and this is a very, very good starting point for most people, if your waist is above those numbers that I just went through, a 30% deficit is a very good starting point. So basically what you would do is whatever your total daily energy expenditure comes to, you want to eat at least 30% below that. So let's say it was, and I'll even do the math for you now, you can probably hear my keyboard typing. So if your maintenance calories is 1,876, if we times that by 0.70, that's going to give us a recommended calorie intake of 1,313. Now, yes, you can go slower than this. If you want, you can go to a 20% deficit. It just means your fat loss results will be a little bit slower. You can go to a 30% deficit. You can even go 40 or even 50% deficit. The lower in calories you go, the faster you will lose weight. The more obese you are, so the more overweight that you are, the lower you can go safely without any adverse health effects. Now, 95% of people, a 30% deficit is a very, very good starting point. All right, this is where I'd recommend at least most people just start their journey. Just get to this number, start tracking your calories at that number, and then just see how your results start to play out over the course of weeks and or months. Now, if you're getting progress, fantastic. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Don't change anything. Keep going as you are. Do not fix what isn't broken. Now, how do you go about tracking those calories? How do I know exactly how many calories I'm eating given the foods that I would usually eat in a day? Now, general rules with this, common sense prevails. Try and eat mostly meats, veggies, and fruits majority of the time. All right. If it grew on the ground or made a noise at some point, it's probably good for you to eat. Now, having said that, the good thing about having a calorie approach or a flexible dieting approach is the fact that you can eat whatever you want and still lose weight. Now, yes, you can sort of follow the guidelines and the rules of 80-20 or 90-10 and that sort of stuff. But honestly, just plan your meals, try and stick to a good schedule, 3 meals a day, 4 meals a day, or 3 meals and 1 snack. Just try and stick to the calories and just don't go over. All right, that would be the best starting advice I would have for any person. And I wish this is the advice that someone told me when I first started losing weight. So here's your number. Now, how do you track it? There's a few different ways. So the 3 apps that I would usually recommend would be MyFitnessPal. At the time of recording this, it has changed around slightly so that MyFitnessPal is now slightly a paid version. So on your MyFitnessPal app or your calorie tracking apps, there's a useful feature which is a barcode scanner. So literally you can get the barcode of any food, point your phone whilst in the app, scan the barcode, and then it'll tell you how many calories is in that specific food per serving. So if I have 1 slice of cheese and I scan it with the app, it'll tell me that 1 slice of cheese is 70 calories. This is usually the most accurate way to get a calorie estimation of your food. Now, the actual calories in the food may vary slightly. It's not 100% correct. But again, it'll average out over time. The more that you eat the same foods, one day it might be slightly higher, one day it might be slightly lower, and that's fine. Don't stress too much. Now, another app that is still free to use the barcode scanner is Chronometer. And there's also another one which is called MyNet Diary. They tend to be the 3 most popular. And a lot of people are moving away from MyFitnessPal now. I've stuck with it. I've been using it for so long. It's just the easiest one for me to use. And I've got pretty much all of the foods I've ever scanned in there. So I don't really need to scan any more foods. Now, that's how I would start. Now, in terms of meal frequency, technically at the very beginning, it doesn't matter when you eat. It doesn't matter what you eat, as long as you don't go over your calories. Now, I would like to try and emphasize, you do want to try and make sure you're getting enough protein, especially if you are doing weight training or weight bearing exercises. Even if you're doing group fitness, the best way to figure out your protein is to take your body weight in kilograms and times that by 1.8. Right? If you are fairly lean-ish, if you're under your healthy waist targets, then that number is going to be a pretty good starting point. If you are extremely overweight and you're obese or morbidly obese, then you have so much excess body fat, it's going to skew that number higher. So if you're 200 kilos, it's going to give you almost 200 grams of protein, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe 180 grams of protein. You don't need that much protein. So what I would then recommend in that case, if you're waist target is substantially higher than where it should be, so you're way above your 50% of your target, I would, whatever your target goal weight is, I would set that number. So if you're currently 100 kilos and you want to get down to 70, I would use 70 kilos times it by 1.8. And that's probably the easiest way to get an estimation for how much protein you need, given the weight that you want to be at, okay? Now, when you track your calories, accuracy is going to be the most important factor, and probably where most people ruin their results. So I've had people who tell me in messages and comments, I'm eating 1,000 calories, 800 calories, 1,200, 900, however much it is, and I'm not losing weight. And usually the number is significantly lower even than their BMR calories. Sorry to break it to you, if you're in a deficit and you are not losing weight, you are not eating in a calorie deficit. Now I'll repeat that again. If you are not losing weight and or measurements, you are not in a calorie deficit. You're just not, all right? Now, this is where the whole fear mongering around the slow metabolism and the broken metabolism myth has spiraled from. This has been around since I've been as a personal trainer, and it still is currently a prevailing myth. It does not exist. Your BMR can't really change because of the organs I spoke about before. Your organs have to basically keep up with the amount or demand that they have to on a daily basis. You can't really change the amount of calories that they burn. So it just is what it is. You can't change it. So I'm not here to point the finger and say, you're wrong, do better. I'm here to help troubleshoot. What do you now do? So if you're getting results, fantastic. If you are not getting results, somewhere, somehow, there's either a mistracking of your calories. So the food that you think you're eating at, say, 1,200 or 1,300 or 1,400 calories is actually closer to your maintenance calories. And I've actually had clients in the past who have had this issue. And even just recently, I had a client who suggested that to me that they were eating 1,200 calories a day for about 3 to 4 weeks, and they weren't receiving or getting the results that we expected. And their maintenance calories was about 2,500. And they were just like, even if I was eating 1,200 calories and logging it, I couldn't be off by 1,000 calories a day. So what we ended up doing was we ended up moving them over to like a pre-done meal plan, which is like a Muscle Chef, which is basically like those fitness meals you can buy at your local supermarket or online. And they're basically just pre-done. They're calorie calculated, they're done for you. And like magic, once my client had started just sticking to those meals, they started losing weight because it was pre-done. There was no other way for them to get food in unless they chose to eat more food than what was planned in those meals. So somewhere, somehow, there was just a tracking error, and it happens to the best of us, even me. Even after months and years of me tracking a specific food and not getting, and going back and revisiting it from time to time, I'll realize I'm off by about 150 or 200 calories. So if you get it wrong the first time, don't feel bad, because it still happens to me. Now, when you're not getting results, it's somewhere, somehow you're missing calories. So either you're going out on weekends, you're going to restaurants and you're trying to estimate calories and it's just not working and you're not getting the results that you want, even though you're eating low calories. The best thing to do is make and prepare all of your food as much as possible for the next 2 to 4 weeks. When you're measuring raw food, so things like broccoli or chicken or things like that, there is a term that I like to use with clients and to get them to start using, and that is the USDA, which is United States Dietary Association. So sometimes if I buy, say, chicken breast from my local supermarket, which is Coles, and I try and scan the barcode with MyFitnessPal, it won't give me an accurate calorie number. It'll give me some random number that some person has imported into MyFitnessPal. Now, the best way to go about this is either A, yes, you can go to the United States Dietary Association website and just double check your numbers. They're probably one of the most accurate ways to get an estimation of the calories. Or you can literally go into your app and type, and this is how I would type it in. You would type in the cut or the type of meat that it is, the cut that the meat is, and how it's been prepared. So as an example, if I'm doing chicken breast, I would type in chicken breast I would weigh it raw. So it would be chicken breast raw, and then I would put in USDA. So chicken breast raw USDA, and search that term. If you are doing, let's say, prawns, and it's raw prawns, or shrimp if you're in the States, I would type in prawns raw USDA. If it was cooked prawns, I would do prawns cooked or fried or baked, or however you're cooking it, USDA. I always find it's much easier to track things raw. Some people like to do it cooked. It's just my personal preference. It's what's worked for me. It's what works for my clients. So when possible, always track it raw, and use that term if you can't find it in your MyFitnessPal. And then you'll be surprised how inaccurate some calorie trackers can be. Now, that's 99% of what you would ever need to do. Now, when it comes to tracking your weight, what I would usually recommend is weighing yourself daily. So every single morning, butt naked on the scale, first thing in the morning. All right. Preferably go to the toilet first if you can. Also preferably before you eat or drink anything, because in the morning is when you're the most, I suppose, dehydrated. You haven't eaten anything for about 8 hours or 9 hours because you fast through the night. And then you jump on the scale, and that's going to be the most accurate time to measure your weight, because just from your morning weight, if you go about your day and you eat food, drink fluids, and then jump on the scale at the end of the day, you could be up 1, 2, 3, 4 kilos by the end of the day. So the morning's the most accurate time to weigh and track yourself. The normal morning schedule for most people would be literally get up, jump into the shower, or go to the toilet, jump in the shower, whichever order you like to go. Get out, dry yourself off, jump on the scale, whatever the number is, log it, and then carry on with the rest of your day. Now, there is best practices for weighing yourself. So too many people get hung up on the fluctuations. So what I would usually recommend is weigh yourself every single morning and take a weekly average. So what this basically means is, like with calories in the last episode, if you ate 1,000 calories one day and then 2,000 calories the next day, over the course of those 2 days, it averages out to be 1,500 calories. Now, you can do this with your weight. You want to take your average for the 7 days, to add them all up, divide it by 7, and that will give you your weekly average. Now, there are apps that you can download as well that do this for you. So with iPhone, I believe it's Happy Scale from memory, and then with Android, I believe it's Libra, or Libra, is going to allow you to track your weight daily, and it will automatically average out your weigh-ins. Now, 2 things to note. Number 1, we don't really care what your scale weight is, provided your measurements go down. And when you're measuring yourself, what I would usually try and do is measure your waist at least the same day, same time each week. So preferably like a Friday, Saturday, or a Sunday morning. The waist targets that I recommended, so men is lower waist, women is upper. There are other measurements I would recommend, but I'm not going to go into that today. I will do a specific podcast on that one as well. If your measurements go down around your waist, keep doing what you're doing. Even if the scale goes up, even if it stays the same, even if it goes down, it doesn't matter. All we care about is physically becoming a smaller person and getting your waist target down to our recommended number of 50% or 46% if you're a female, or lower. If you're trending towards that number with your waist target, that's all that matters, okay? Now, some people, after doing this for a while, they may be losing weight for a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and then people may hit a plateau, so they may stop losing weight. Let's quickly define what a plateau is in my terms. A plateau is basically where you haven't lost any weight, and this is your weekly average weight. If your weekly average weight is exactly the same on a week-to-week basis for 3 weeks, and you haven't lost any centimeters off your waist for 3 weeks, I would classify that as a plateau. If you're in a plateau, what do? You probably don't need to reduce your calories unless you're starting from someone who's morbidly obese and you've lost maybe 30 or 40 kilos. Yes, you may then need to reduce your calories a bit further. 99.9% of people are probably suffering from diet fatigue, which is basically just you have been doing this for long enough that you've just gotten bored of tracking accurately and food has started to sneak back in. 99.9% of the time, if I ever have a client in this situation, as soon as we go back to meticulously tracking, and I mean with militant precision, sugar, biscuits, sauces, condiments, every little bit of food and fluid and anything that goes in your mouth is weighed, tracked, and measured on a scale, everyone starts losing weight again. Pretty much eating the exact same number. So when people ask me if I'm stuck in a plateau, what do I do? How do I fix it? I'm losing my mind. I want to pull out my hair. I'm putting all this effort in. 99.9% of the time, it's always going to be accuracy of tracking those calories. Okay. Sometimes it does happen. Sometimes calories do possibly need to come down, but I wouldn't do anything drastic if you were to reduce your calories. You may need to reduce it by another 100, maybe 200 at the most. But don't do anything drastic, because this is the best, from my experience, this is the easiest, fastest way to lose weight. So track your calories, do some basic weight training, and get enough sleep. Now, when it does come to sleep, I would always try and recommend getting at least or as close to 8 hours per night as possible. There's many studies on this in terms of the benefits of proper sleep, in terms of even weight loss and hunger and food cravings. Not only that, memory retention, there are so many benefits to sleep. This sleep should almost be as much a priority in your weight loss journey as your calories and your training. If anything, it should probably even be higher. Now, there are some really good books on sleep. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I think there was one called Why We Sleep. There's currently one I'm listening to at the moment. Again, I can't remember the name of it, but highly recommend you look into sleep and the effects of sleep on weight loss. So that's pretty much it. That's how I would run through everything with a client, and I'll give you another very quick overview or a summary of everything. And also before I forget, when you do measure your food, I would recommend measuring it on a kitchen scale in grams. Ounces aren't the best, even if you are from the States. It's not the most accurate way to track calories. Try and measure in grams where possible. Grams are much more accurate. When you measure yourself, also measure yourself in centimeters. Centimeters are also much more accurate. So to wrap it up and sum up everything for you, working out your calories, just use the calculators that I've recommended, or you can use mine. A 30% calorie deficit is going to be a fantastic starting point for majority of people. If your waist target is under our recommended limits, you may need to diet a little more slowly, but that's another topic for another time. Your BMR is your calories to lay in bed. Your total daily energy expenditure is the calories you burn throughout the day just going about your life, including training and steps and things like that. You want to use a calorie counting app such as MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, MyNet Diary to track your calories accurately. You want to weigh yourself daily and take the average of each week. You can use apps like Libra or Happy Scale. You can use the terms USDA, which is United States Dietary Association, to get accurate foods and calories in your diary if you can't scan the barcode. Okay. Now, you want to eat mostly whole foods, meats, veggies, and fruits most of the time. But I want you to get into the mindset of there is no good or bad food from now on. All right. You can eat whatever you want. You can eat whenever you want. Just make common sense decisions about whole foods most of the time, but don't feel guilty about having some chocolate or a beer or a glass of wine or a packet of chips. If it fits your calories, you can have it. All right. If it fits your calories, you are allowed to have it. Stop listening to everyone else. And then when you weigh yourself, every single morning, take the average. And when you do your waist measurements, I would usually recommend at least once per week. And for men, we want to keep your waist target at least 50% or below your height. And for women, it works out to be 46% of your height or below. Men, we use the belly button waist at the widest point, and women, we use the small waist, which is just below the ribs, just above the hips. Cool. Now, there was a bit of an overview on this episode, just more specifically about setting up calories and just getting you started, just to carry on from the last episode, but I will be going into a little bit more in the future about how low can your calories go, how fast you can lose weight, should you start higher or lower in calories. So we're going to cover a lot of that stuff moving forward. So Hope you found this information helpful, guys. If you did, feel free to pass it on to anyone else that feels like that they could benefit from it if you think so. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. If you have any questions, you can contact me directly anytime. I'm always happy to help where I can. And I will be looking to try and get this podcast onto other platforms as well. So things like iTunes and I think there's like 10 other different platforms. But if I can help one person with one podcast and transform their life, my job is done. Okay. All right, guys, as always, thank you for listening. I shall speak to you all soon. Bye.